Hi guys, this video I'm making to tell you the steps of reduction of a Colles fracture. I'll just tell you in brief about the Colles. We'll just talk in brief what exactly Colles is. So Colles fracture, what is that Colles fracture? If we just enumerate the fractures at distal end of radius, how many fractures do we know at distal end of radius? There are two types of fractures at distal end of radius. One is what you call extra-articular, correct? And one is what you call intra-articular, isn't it? So extra-articular and intra-articular. So distal end of radius means when the fracture is occurring at its cortico-cancellous junction. So extra-articular fractures we have two, right? One is Colles and one is Smith. And when you say intra-articular fracture, what are those? These are again two. One is what you call Barton, which can be a volar Barton or dorsal Barton, and second is Schoffer. So when you say intra-articular, which joint you are referring to? We are referring to the radiocarpal joint. So this is again MCQ which was asked last year, right? So which is a joint we are talking about. So do remember, when you say intra and extra-articular, it is radiocarpal. What does that mean, radiocarpal? This one is radius and these are carpal. So if this joint is breached, it will be intra-articular. If the joint is okay, it is extra-articular. Okay. So today we are going to talk about, because in some of the colleges, some of the universities, they ask you the questions, or in Viva also, that what are the steps of reduction? How do we reduce? You know, with each passing year, the trend has been changing, and now, the questions are next level. So let's talk about this Colles. How do we reduce it? But before we move further, I'll just tell you what is the basic difference in Colles and Smith. You know that in Colles fracture, we have got 6 typical displacements. And what special we have got is a deformity. What kind of deformity? That's what you call a dinner fork deformity, right? What is the reason? And in the Smith, what we see is another different kind of displacement with some other deformity, which is known as garden spade. Okay, so what is the reason? How do you differentiate now? Now here you see, you have got two X-rays, X-ray A, and let's label them X-ray B. Two X-rays we have, A and B. Okay, so this is the metacarpal, the first metacarpal, that is the thumb. This is the first metacarpal, that is thumb. Now you see, first thing to be seen in a fracture distal end of radius is whether it is intra or extra articular. So I told you which joint is to be seen, radiocarpal. So here you see the radiocarpal joint is okay. Here you see the radiocarpal joint is okay. Is it both fine? So this is some sort of extra articular fracture. Now second thing is to be seen is the displacement, where it is going. If it is a palmar displacement, palmar or dorsal displacement means another basic concept. Whenever you talk about a displacement, then you have to see where the distal fragment is going. Like in this particular case, if I label the fragment, this is the distal fragment and that's the proximal fragment. This is the proximal fragment, that's the distal fragment. Now if you see very clearly, you'll realize that this is the front side, that is the flexor side of the wrist, and this is the extensor side of the wrist, correct? Now see where the distal fragment is going. If you see the X-ray 1, here the distal fragment is moving on the dorsal side, that means towards extensor side, and here the flexor, distal fragment is moving towards the flexor side, palmar side, right? So flexor means your palmar side, this side, and extensor means the dorsal side, this side, back side. So this is dorsal side. So what happens in Colles? In Colles, there is a displacement which is on dorsal side, right? So Colles will have a dorsal displacement. Colles will have a dorsal displacement. While on the other hand, the Smith will have what kind of displacement? The palmar displacement. The Smith will have palmar displacement. So that is one way to identify or differentiate, you can say, the Colles and Smith. Which one is Colles and which one is Smith, right? I hope everybody is able to appreciate now that this one becomes your Colles, this one becomes your Colles, and this one is Smith. Both Colles and Smith, they were teaching together. They were professors at the university, together, and the Colles was head of the department and Smith was his junior subordinate, right? So after Colles died, Smith named after a fracture after him. So Colles was going dorsally, so Smith is coming on the palmar side, right? That is how the fragments are differentiated. Okay, so today in this topic, in this video, we are going to talk about how to reduce a fracture of Colles. What exactly, what are the steps which we need to take care while we are reducing? Because in Colles fracture, the treatment modality that is followed in majority of the cases, it is conservative, the plaster application. So you should know the steps of reduction of the fracture, right? Now you know that the Colles fracture basically it is seen in which category of people most commonly? Colles is a fracture which occur most often in osteoporotic patients, isn't it? So Colles is one of the commonest fracture of osteoporotic patients. And what are the other fractures which are common in osteoporotic patients? One, most commonest fracture, it remains your fracture of vertebra, and second commonest remains your the fracture neck of femur. Third one, Colles. And why in osteoporosis we get these three sites, getting injured? Because these are cancellous bones, right? So they get injured easily. Okay, so now when you see this X-ray, have a look on this particular X-ray, and then you'll understand the steps related to the reduction of Colles fracture. Now we have to understand this. See, now you all can appreciate this. The metacarpal, the first one, thumb, the proximal part of the bone and the distal part of the bone, and where it is projecting, it is deviating towards dorsal side. So first we need to understand the displacements related to Colles fracture. So what are the displacements related to Colles fracture? We should know them. So you all know that the displacements related to Colles, they are, number one, there are total 6 in number. Okay, so dorsal, or you can just, I'll tell you one easy way to remember them. The first one is L. L means lateral displacement and lateral tilt. Lateral displacement and lateral tilt. So 2 displacements. Second you can remember is I. I is impaction. What is the meaning of impaction? Impaction means where the two fragments they merge into each other. Now you can see in the X-ray, even after the fracture has occurred, this dorsal fragment and palmar fragment, the proximal fragment, not palmar, proximal fragment, they have not moved apart. Instead, they have moved towards each other. That means initial position of bone was this, and after fracture, this is what has happened. That is what you call impaction. Number 3, you can say is D. So D stands for dorsal displacement and dorsal tilt. Okay, so I told you what is dorsal displacement. That means the fragment here, if you see the lateral view, the fragment is coming back, extensor side. And fourth is S. S stands for supination. What does that mean? What does that mean? So the distal fragment is actually going into supination, right? Fragments are deviating. So it easily tells you कि हमें what we need to do, what we need to achieve is a correct the position of the fragments, of both the fragments. If you leave the patient in this position only, and if you apply plaster, what will happen? This deformity is going to happen. And what is this deformity now? That's what you call a Dinner-Falk deformity. So if I tell you why a Dinner-Falk deformity, occurs in the cases of Colles. So basically Dinner-Falk deformity in cases of Colles, it is due to 3 basic displacements, right? What are those? These are because of dorsal tilt. This is because of dorsal shift, second one, and third one is the lateral shift or the radial shift, you can say. Radial shift. These are 3 main deformities, 3 reasons why the patient gets a Dinner-Falk, because the fragment is coming here, hump on the back. So that's what you call a Dinner-Falk deformity, right? Now coming on to how to go ahead with the reduction, how to achieve the reduction. Now we have to understand one very basic thing. This fragment, you say fragment 1 and fragment 2, what had happened to them? Impaction. So first step would be to disimpact. So to disimpact, what you have to do? You have to apply some traction, right? And then in which position we have to block it, that is another thing we need to understand. Okay, now I'll show you one image step by step. Let me tell you guys, whatever I'm telling you now, this is all, the references for all is taken from a book which everybody reads in whole world, and that is Chanlay's. So I'm telling you what is mentioned in Chanlay and what everybody should know while reducing the fracture of Colles or other conservative management. This is the book that we all follow, that we all read. I've taken a few images from that book to make you understand this in an easy way. Now understand this. Okay, what happens? This is your carpal. Which carpal? The scaphoid, let's say. Right, this is a bone, these are carpal bone. So this is a carpal bone and this is a carpal bone. So what happens is, this is the distal radius. This is distal radius. So when there is a fracture, this is distal radius. When the fracture occurs, what happens with the fracture? We need to understand it step by step. Give some time, have some patience for looking to look at this video. Once you look at it, it will become very easy for you. Okay, what happens in a fracture of Colles is, this is a soft tissue coverage that you can see. Sorry, this all is the soft tissue envelope over the bone. Now what happens with the Colles? This distal fragment moves on which side? You know that it is moving on dorsal side. So that is our dorsal side. So when the distal fragment moves up, what happens? It happens after a trauma to the soft tissue envelope which is present on the palmar side, right? So what has happened is, this soft tissue coverage on the palmar side is ruptured, and what we have all is a covering on the dorsal side. That means you just have a boundary on the dorsal side. So you have to use the boundary on the dorsal side so that the fragment, once you reduce them, they remain in position. It's as simple as that. Because either to koi boundary hai nahi, there is no boundary on this side, right? So when there is no boundary on this side, who can support the fracture to remain in position once reduced? It is only the dorsal envelope. Okay, how we are going to use it, we'll just see. So now you see, when we reduce it, we are using the dorsal envelope here. We are using the dorsal envelope to keep the distal end of radius in position. How it will be done? What will be the steps? So I'll tell you the steps one by one, and why we give the plaster in a particular position. That will also become very, very clear to you now. Okay, so this is a base concept. The palmar side soft tissue envelope or the coverage, it is lost. I'm not talking about skin. So don't say, sir, in Colles there is no open fracture. No, it is not about open. It is about the soft tissue coverage. It is about the soft tissue support. So inside the skin, you have got the muscles which are covering over here, right? So the coverage is on this side. So we have to use this side to make a support so that the reduced bones can be kept at a position. How will that be done? Let's see that step by step, one by one. Okay, so we have to understand what are the steps. So step number one, I'll keep on mentioning and then I'll tell you. So let's talk about the steps of reduction now. What will be the steps of reduction? How we reduce a Colles fracture? So if your professor asks you, better tell me what are the steps of reduction of Colles. So first you have to explain to him, sir, in Colles fracture there is a dorsal displacement and other displacements as well. So there is a dorsal displacement of the distal fragment, so the fragment comes over here. Also the soft tissue boundary, the soft tissue support from the palmar side is lost. So whatever support we have is on the dorsal side. So the principle of reduction will be to use the dorsal soft tissue coverage. How? So sir, the first step in reduction would be disimpaction. The first step would be disimpaction. So they can ask you, why disimpaction? What are the 6 steps of what are the 6 displacements of Colles? So we have already discussed that. So sir, these are the 6 displacements of Colles, right? So what you have to do, first you have to disimpact. This impaction has occurred, first you have to disimpact. So how will you disimpact? How will you disimpact? There are 2 ways. One is direct pull, khicho, right? So pull this in one direction, proximal part in one direction and the distal part in one direction, they will move apart. But now the point is, you have to understand, when disimpaction occurs, it has to be done in a proper sequencing, right? Disimpaction, it has to be done in a proper sequencing. How? We need 2 people to reduce one Colles. It is not about one person only, we need 2 people, right? So one is a person who is giving the plaster, who is trying to reduce, and one assistant. So 2 persons are required. 2 persons are required. One is the chief person who is reducing the fracture and one is a assistant. What is the function of the assistant? The assistant's function is to always give basically to give the counter traction, because traction is given here by the surgeon and counter traction is given by the assistant. So what the assistant does, by his one hand he holds the lower this arm, right, or the elbow area, and he keeps on pulling it. That is what the counter traction is. So what is the role of the assistant? To give, the role of assistant is to give counter traction, right? To hold the elbow, the role is to hold the elbow and give, how it is given, I'll show you by images also, okay, and give counter traction and give counter traction. So how it is done? It is something like this, like this. This is the step 1. So examiner, the assistant will hold it from here, elbow area, and it will keep on pulling it. So where the person, the main chief person is giving the traction, it is from here. How it is done, we'll learn step by step. So this is step 1, right? Second, in the disimpaction is, I told you that there are two fragments which are merged into each other, right? Now to disimpact, it is not that simple as it looks like. It is not that simple. Just you have to pull and it will disengage. No. The two fragments, the proximal fragment and the distal fragment, they behave like these two half shown circles. These circles, what is special with them? These are not smooth circles. These have got teeth. These have got teeth, right? So this is actually the position of Colles when the fracture occurs. This one is our proximal fragment and this is our distal fragment. This is something how the Colles will behave. Now if I want to disengage them, I'll have to do two things simultaneously. What is that? One will be the traction. One will be the traction. Okay. And second thing I have to do to disimpact is, these behave like teeth into each other. These are comminuted. These are multiple pieces of the bones. Where are the multiple pieces of the bones? At the cortico-cancellous junction, right? So what we have to do is, along with the traction, what we do, what has happened? The distal fragment is here, which has come on the dorsal side. So what we do in step 1, we keep the patient's hand like this in the supinated position, right? We keep the patient hand like this in supinated position. And step 1 we are going to do is, we will increase the deformity. How we are going to increase the deformity? The dorsal hump is here. So what we do, keep the hand like this and we increase. We give the traction, we give the linear traction, and then we increase the deformity. Why you are increasing the deformity? Increasing the deformity so that these teeth, they get disengaged. So what will happen? What will happen? If I move this circle up, understand this, if I move this half circle up, what will happen? This will move away. This circle is moving like this. So these teeth will disengage and then I give a traction. So when I give a traction and when I disengage, what happens is, this is now the proximal part and this is the distal part. Remember, traction is still maintained. So that is why we are able to see some space over here. That is why we are able to see some space over here. And in this position, when I release my traction, what will happen? This will fall into place like this. This will fall into place, right? So what we have to do is, we have to do two steps. One is traction. Who is giving the traction? The chief surgeon. Second is counter traction. Who is maintaining the counter traction? The assistant. How it is being done? Here, have a look on this here. So this is the assistant. This is the assistant. I have taken the wordings also from the book so that if you are finding difficult to understand what I'm saying, you can read on the whatever is written on the screen also. So this is assistant, right? This is the chief. So what chief is doing? Chief is giving a traction and increasing. Chief is giving the traction and increasing what? Increasing the dorsiflexion, because the fragment is already into dorsal side, but we have to increase the deformity initially so that the two fragments, they disengage, like as per this image I have been trying to explain to you. Okay, so for disengagement we have to do two things. One, traction and increase the deformity, that is dorsiflexion. So traction is given, dorsiflexion is given, two fragments are now disengaged. Okay, once it is done, then what we do? Once it is done, then what we do? Hand was like this, initially like this, supinated. Okay, so increase the deformity, give a traction, increase the deformity, counter traction by the assistant. Step number two would be, once the two fragments are apart, then we reduce it. Then we release it. And what we do is, we give the examiner, the chief, he is giving pressure at 2 points. This hand is giving the pressure at the proximal part to keep that in place, and other hand is on the distal part from dorsal side, right? So proximal fragment, distal fragment by two hands. Now he is maintaining the pressure. So once exaggerated the deformity like this, exaggerated, traction is given, reduction achieved, and then we keep on maintaining the pressure here, right, in this position. Third will be to lock this position, right? How to lock this position now? What you have done, I repeat the steps. It is very important. I repeat them. I'm repeating them again and again so that you are able to understand it more clearly. So what is the first step? First step is disengagement with the disimpaction. So disengagement, how that happens? By increasing the deformity. You have to move both the fragments apart, so give the traction. So first step, disimpaction, done. Reduction, done. Maintain the reduction. How? Keep on giving the pressures. So for how long the examiner will be able to pressurize them? the distal fragment and the proximal fragment. Okay, that won't be happening for a long time. So here the examiner is giving you pressure on both the fragment, proximal fragment and distal fragment, so that they remain in place. Now we have to give a position in which these two fragments they get locked. How that will be done? Understand this. Understand this. Till now it is all supinated. Till now it is all supinated. Why? Because the distal fragment is getting, the distal most part is getting into supination, right? So how we have to stop that? How we have to lock that? We have to lock that by moving the wrist basically into pronation. The lower forearm you can say into pronation, not the wrist, the lower forearm into pronation. Okay, how it is being done? The only work of the assistant is to maintain the counter traction all through the maneuver, right? He is not losing the traction. Do remember, the failure of reduction of Colles, one of the most important reason is that the assistant is not able to maintain the counter traction. That is the most important step. We feel like that we are the chief surgeon, we are going to do it. No, it is equally important that the assistant maintains the counter traction all through the maneuver. If the counter traction is released, the fragments will move apart again. They will dislodge, right? So now what is going to happen? Now this fracture will be made stable by pronation. You had a supination and now just pronate it. Maintain the traction and just pronate it, right? Once the pronation is done, this will be locked. Why? Because you know that the distal 1/3 of the radius ulna, what they give attachment to? The pronator, right? The pronators. So once you put the wrist in pronation, there is no other force which is acting on the lower third of the forearm. So the fragment cannot now run away, right? So with the injury, the fragment has gone into supination. What we have done? We have put the wrist in or lower forearm into pronation. So now that is the mechanism, that is the function of that particular muscle. So when the wrist is coming into pronation, there is no other force which can displace it. So the most important line that we have to understand from here, if the pronation is maintained, the reduction will be hold without traction. So if you maintain this pronation, the reduction will not be lost. It is maintained here, right? So it was locked. Now once you are locking it, what you have to do? You have to apply the plaster. Understand this? So I hope step 1 is clear. I'll write here. The steps are clear. So what we have done? We have done the disimpaction. Second step, how we have done the disimpaction? Disimpaction has been done in two ways. One, traction. One is giving the linear traction, and second is increasing the dorsiflexion, or you can say dorsal displacement increased. What is the function of this increasing the dorsiflexion? This causes disengagement. This causes disengagement of two fragments. This causes disengagement of the two fragments. So we have given the traction and we have increased. So disimpaction is achieved by, we should remember, disimpaction is achieved by giving the traction and increasing the dorsiflexion. Okay, so disengagement done. If I mention the step 2 now, what is done in step 2? In step 2, this is step 1 and that is now step 2. What we have done? We have achieved the reduction. Reduction is achieved. Mechanism I have already explained to you. So reduction is achieved, and the chief, the examiner, the person putting the plaster, chief, keeps the distal and proximal fragment in place. Distal and proximal fragments in place by putting pressure on them. By putting pressure on them. Right? So reduction is achieved. Step 3 is locking. Step 3 is locking. How the locking is achieved? Locking is achieved by pronation. It is achieved by pronation of forearm. Because we know the lower third has got the attachment of the pronators. So once the forearm is moved into pronation, the pronator muscles will not allow the displacement. So these are the 3 basic steps. Now once the steps are done, reduction is done, we'll see that at this point now, this is the final position. This assistant is giving the counter traction. Okay, this assistant is giving the counter traction. This chief surgeon is pressurizing the proximal fragment by the left hand, pressurizing the distal fragment by the right hand, and he's still maintaining the traction. So traction will be maintained, pressure will be given on both the fragments by the chief, and counter traction provided by the assistant. Now the point is we have to apply the plaster. We have to apply the plaster, right? Why the plaster? Now while the plaster is being applied, what the surgeon has to do is he has to pull the two pieces of bones into different directions. How will that be done? It is done by pulling only three, you can say the 2 points by one hand. Now you have seen this posture. Now what will happen after this is the examiner will have to pull the wrist, the distal fragment. How? By holding the thumb by one hand and these 3 fingers by other hand. Examiner doesn't hold the little finger, right? Because the counter traction is already being given by the assistant. The surgeon will have to apply the plaster. So somebody will have to maintain the traction. How will that be maintained? How the reduction, basically traction is already reduced, but pronation has to be achieved, right? Pronation has to be kept. So reduction has to be maintained. Some third person will come into picture now, and that third person will hold the thumb by one hand, these 3 fingers by other hand, and they will pull them, right? They will pull them. This little finger is not hold, right? And the wrist is kept in like this. Palmar flexion now, right? Because dorsiflexion disengage the fragment, and now the wrist is kept in pronation and palmar flexion now. Okay, so why we are leaving this little finger, why we don't give a traction on this finger, you can easily understand by this image, right? So this is finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, finger 4. Okay, if we pull all the 4 fingers, what will happen? This will basically compromise the palmar arch. This is going to compromise the palmar arch. But if I leave the little finger separately, only 3 fingers are coming together. So my palmar arch is not getting compromised here, right? So once these 3 steps are done, I hope you are able to understand this. Once these 3 steps are done, disimpaction, reduction and locking, then step 4 is that the second person, or you can say third person, the third person holds the thumb and 3 fingers, right? And little finger is left. That is one very important point. Little finger is left. You don't touch it. Why we don't touch it? I have told you the reason why it is not touched. To maintain the palmar arch. To maintain arch. If you hold all the fingers, what is going to happen? If you hold all the fingers, what is going to happen? That there will be a compromise of the palmar arch, like I have shown you this, right? So once you have hold them, once you have applied the plaster, the final resultant will be this, right? Otherwise the final resultant will be this. If you are pulling all the fingers together, there will be a compromise of the transverse palmar arch. Otherwise this is the resultant of B. Okay, so we have to keep keep in mind that once the plaster is removed, the person should be able to move or have proper functioning of the fingers. If you keep a compromise of the transverse palmar arch, definitely there will be some kind of fibrosis. There will be some kind of restriction of movement that we don't want, right? So if you do this, this is wrong. We don't pull all the 4 fingers. Okay, we pull just thumb and 3 fingers. We just leave these. We just leave this little finger. Okay, so once this is done, then the plaster is applied like this, right? How it has been done? It is done. The first you can see is the plaster cast has been applied with the wrist in palmar flexion, right? So it is slightly in palmar flexion. That is slightly in palmar flexion. Second is it has been given in slightly ulnar deviation. So it is given in ulnar deviation. Okay, these 3 points, these are 2 important points that I would like to again mention here. So now the plaster is given. Step number 5 I would like to mention here. The step 5 is give plaster now. Apply the plaster now. In what position? In palmar flexion, because that is how you have blocked it. Palmar flexion. And second is ulnar deviation. Second is ulnar deviation. That is the PF and UD, right? Palmar flexion and ulnar deviation. That is what you also call as the handshake position, right? Palmar flexion, ulnar deviation. Okay. These are the steps, and why while we are giving this, we have to mold the plaster accordingly. That also works on 3-point fixation principle, right? So here you have to take care that proper angulation is made, that is palmar flexion. Here you have to make sure that it is not impinging on the skin, and this fragment. So these three are the 3 pressure points where the plaster is getting stable here, and it does not get removed from the limb when it is applied, right? This is what happens, that what I was talking about, while this is the assistant. Now he is not giving any kind of traction. Why? Because once pronated, it gets locked. So once pronated, it gets locked. Second person is holding the thumb only and these 3 fingers only. Little finger you all can see is left. So this is what happens when you hold all the 4 fingers. This is what happens when you hold only the 3 fingers. And this is the final result when you hold only the 3 fingers. Right? So these are the steps of reduction of Colles fracture. That is, I guess, sufficient for UG level to answer for your PGM exam. So this is in one screen you can see, right? This is in one screen you can see. So these are, what are these? These are the steps. These are the steps of reduction. These are the steps of reduction of Colles fracture. So named after Abraham Colles, the Colles fracture. I hope these small points, the images have helped you out to understand how to reduce the Colles. Okay, so I'll just enlarge it and I'll show you the whole screen. So step 1, quick revision. Step 1, disimpaction. How? Traction and increase the dorsiflexion. Worked on principle of this tooth semicircle, right? It's not a smooth semicircle. These are comminuted fractures. Do remember, Colles are 99%, they are comminuted fractures. Multiple fragments will be seen. In very less cases, it will be just one straight line. Okay. Second is reduction. Reduction is how to achieve that? Just to disimpact, increase the dorsiflexion, and then once you release, it will come into position and you give pressurize them. And to block them, third step is locking. It is achieved by pronation of the forearm. So that is how you achieve the locking of the fracture. The 2 fragments are staying together, right? Number 4 will be applying the plaster. For that, the third person will have to pull or keep holding, basically not required now, traction is not required. So he'll keep on holding the thumb and the 3 fingers to maintain the palmar arch. And step number 5 would be giving the plaster in palmar flexion and ulnar deviation, because this is how the plaster has been, the wrist has been blocked. Okay, so these are the steps of reduction of Colles, right? So if this is all I think you require at a UG level, so just provide me the reviews of this. Just provide me if this video has helped you out. Just let me know your opinion. That's my mail ID where you can connect with me for any other orthopedic query or so. I'm available on the DBMCA Premier Group also, and that is my WhatsApp number. If you want to connect very quickly, that's the WhatsApp number you can use. Okay, so just connect. Let me know your reviews, the mail ID and the WhatsApp. So thank you so much for the patiently watching this video, listening to all the things and the images I've shown you, so that it becomes easy for us to understand more, to see the video again and again, and to answer the queries of the examiner in the exams, right? So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video, and do provide your feedbacks. They are awaited. Thank you so much.